A BB for Hodie and straight black pride, brothers and sisters. This is your brother, DC Radical One, with another radical report. And today we're going to talk about what sounds like an unusual story. It says here a biology professor says he was fired for teaching sex is determined by X and Y chromosomes. Now, obviously, this is what I was taught in biology, and I thought this is what everyone was taught in biology. So I, myself, apparently am in for an education, and this should be an interesting discussion. Now, it says here, a biology professor at a Texas community college has claimed he was fired for quote-unquote religious preaching after he taught a lesson about how sex is determined by X and Y chromosomes. Johnson Varkey, who has taught at St. Philip's College in San Antonio for 20 years, claimed he was accused of quote-unquote religious preaching and let go after he discussed the human reproductive system during a lesson on November 28, 2022, which led to 4 students walking out of the lecture hall. The First Liberty Institute, a Texas-based nonprofit Christian conservative law firm, last week sent a letter to the school on behalf of the veteran educator, demanding his reinstatement. The college fired him for teaching basic and widely accepted concepts of biology. We're asking the college to immediately reinstate Dr. Varkey to his position and clear his record of any wrongdoing, the institute said in a statement. And here we have a picture of Dr. Varkey from an interview that we'll be seeing shortly. It says Varkey, an adjunct professor, has taught human anatomy and physiology to more than 1,500 students since 2003, according to First Liberty. During Dr. Varkey's 20-year employment as a biology professor at St. Philip's College, he consistently received exemplary performance reviews and has never been subject to discipline. Throughout that time, he never discussed with any student his personal views, religious or otherwise, on human gender or sexuality, it said. The law firm claimed the 4 students stormed out the lecture hall when Varkey stated, consistent with his study of human biology and religious beliefs, that sex was determined by chromosomes X and Y. In 2 decades of teaching these basic, unremarkable concepts, no other students complained. Okay, I must admit, I'm confused here. Apparently, the students were offended by his teaching that sex is determined by X and Y chromosomes. I don't understand exactly what the confusion is. I thought this was a basic biological concept and that everyone understood this, and this has been taught since people have discovered X and Y chromosomes. So I'm not sure how this teaching is actually offensive. I must admit, we're in an age where everyone seems to be able to be offended by virtually anything at any time. But this is one of those times where I just don't have any understanding. Let's move forward. The X and Y chromosomes, also known as the sex chromosomes, determine the biological sex of an individual. Females inherit an X chromosome while males inherit a Y chromosome. And in actuality, this is correct, but they leave out the part that you have 2 chromosomes. So you have 1 X and 1 Y if you're a male, and you have 2 X's if you're a female. I don't know who wrote this, but they somehow left that part out. Let's move forward. It says in January, he received a notice of discipline and termination of employment and contract letter, stating that the school received numerous complaints about his religious preaching, discriminatory comments about homosexuals and transgender individuals, anti-abortion rhetoric, and misogynistic banter, First Liberty said. The college's letter allegedly stated that Varkey's teaching pushed beyond the bounds of academic freedom with his personal opinions that were offensive to many individuals in the classroom. In other words, he was fired for teaching true and widely accepted concepts. The statements he made are supported by research and consistent with his professional experience and education, the law firm said. Varkey was described as a devout Christian who volunteers as an associate pastor at his church and hosts a Bible teaching ministry. Like millions of religious Americans, Dr. Varkey has sincerely held beliefs that God created humankind male and female, First Liberty said. His faith teaches that one sex is ordained by God, that one should love and care for the body that God gave him or her, and that one should not attempt to erase or alter his sex, whether through drugs or surgical means. Let's stop right there. Now, he, of course, is allowed to have these beliefs as far from a religious freedom point of view according to the Constitution of the United States. Now, the question becomes, did he actually share these beliefs while performing his duties as a professor? If he did not, then it would seem to me that he has been wrongly terminated. If he did express these religious beliefs while he was performing his duties as a professor, then it's highly possible that he was fired with cause. So that really is the crux of this case from my point of view, even though I personally, not because of any religious belief, but from basic biology and scientific fact, I'm confused why people would be personally offended by his teaching these basic biological facts. He didn't state, it doesn't state here anyway, that he said your gender identity. He said your sex is determined by your chromosomes, which is scientific fact up until I started reading this article. Now apparently someone's trying to tell me that it's not scientific fact, which means I have to go buy a biology book and figure out what the scientific fact is if that's not the case, because that's what they've been teaching for many, many years now. Now, it says in its letter, the law firm accused St. Philip's College of violating multiple laws that protect Americans from being punished for holding or expressing their religious beliefs. When decision makers at St. Philip's College terminated Dr. Varkey because of his religious beliefs and classroom statements about biology, they violated several federal and state laws, including the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, the Texas Religious Freedom Restoration Act, and Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, according to the missive. Dr. Varkey is confident this matter can be resolved without resort to legal action. He asked that St. Philip's College reinstate him to his prior position as adjunct professor so that he can resume his teaching duties this fall, and that other professors and employees of the Alamo College's district be spared from experiencing similar discrimination. The law firm said public universities cannot fire professors for teaching actual science. It's harmful to academic freedom. It's also harmful to religious liberty, as the college is sending a message that people of faith are not welcomed and need not apply. This is, in my opinion, a very important First Amendment case, because if it becomes that he's fired with just cause and is not found that he has been expressing his views, but because someone, and in this day and time you can look up anything on anyone, let's say that people were offended by him teaching just this basic biology, and then they claim that he was interjecting his religious views. This is scary for not just religious people, but for any people who hold basic beliefs and want to express those beliefs it's really an interesting case because it really could be an attack on the First Amendment. And it's really interesting that you can't say that your chromosomes determine your sex. And I mean, where are we going here in America if this is the case? So what we're going to do now is we're going to load up a clip from CBN News with the interview with Dr. Varkey, and we can hear his thoughts about the case and hear exactly what happened.
A Texas professor claims he was fired after university leaders found his teachings too religious. Dr. Johnson Varkey and his attorneys at First Liberty Institute sent a letter to St. Philip's College in San Antonio, Texas, charging that his firing was illegal. CBN's Billy Hallowell sat down with Dr. Varkey to learn more about why he's fighting back.
As a biology professor for the past 20 years, Dr. Johnson Varkey consistently taught the same scientific facts about the human reproductive system without any problems. But he says that recently changed when he received a notice of dismissal.
I was surprised and I was shocked because, I never expected for such a letter from or such an email from the school, because I've been teaching that for that school for the last 20 years and without any complaints.
Dr. Varkey believes his lessons on human biology and sex being determined by chromosomes X and Y sparked complaints, which led to his dismissal.
On the 12th of January, I received an email from the vice president of the school that they are doing an ethic violation investigation on me. 2 weeks after the first email, I received another email with a letter of termination.
Dr. Varkey says although he asked about complaints, he received no response from HR and didn't get a chance to defend himself before his firing.
When I got the letter of termination, what the VP mentioned was that some of the complaints were offensive to the homosexuals and transgender. So I presume and I assume that very possible it is based on human reproductive system, which I taught in November. When I taught this class, 4 of my students just walked out.
First Liberty attorney Keisha Russell believes Dr. Varkey's case likely has much to do with current cultural trends.
When I saw the termination letter and I see that the university is accusing him of religious preaching, I think that what they don't understand is even if he was, they still can't fire him for saying something that he believes to be true.
Russell says her client's speech was based on his sincerely held beliefs and ethical integrity and is protected under the First Amendment. Furthermore, she believes Dr. Varkey's views on biology and other related issues are backed by science.
We just think it's a shame that they would fire one of their long-term professors for teaching what he's always taught.
A representative for the Alamo College's district told CBN News it does not comment on personnel matters or pending or threatened litigation. As for Varkey, he's hoping to successfully convince St. Philip's College to overturn his dismissal.
Dr. Varkey obviously wants to be reinstated, and he wants his job back and his record cleared because he didn't do anything wrong.
Russell believes the college violated Dr. Varkey's First Amendment rights, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and the Texas Religious Freedom Restoration Act. I'm Billy Hallowell, CBN News.
Now, and again, that was a CBN News report. And I have another article dealing with this same situation that I want to get into just a little bit before we close out. And it says here, this is from the Daily Mail. Texas anatomy professor who also works as a pastor is fired after teaching students sex is determined by X and Y chromosomes, causing 4 to walk out of class. And has him quoting says, "I just teach basic biology." So we're going to go past a part that we know, and we're going to get to a section here. It says, the former professor continued, X and X, those are 2 chromosomes. make a person female, X and Y male. That's all I mentioned in the classroom. That's just a mere biological fact. Varkey had been notified of a complaint being made against him by Vice President for Academic Success at the college, Randall Dawson. Dawson said in an email, "I am sending you notification that Alamo College's District Human Resources Department is in receipt of an ethics violation complaint." Okay, that's new information. Varkey responded saying, "What was the complaint? I am not aware of any violations that I have committed." He was then informed that any further communication would come via the HR department at the college. And then they have the letter here. 2 weeks later, he was issued a memorandum from Dawson who notified him he was losing his job. It reads, "St. Philip's College has received numerous complaints regarding your classroom behavior while facilitating in an official teaching capacity, which is found to be unacceptable. The complaint contains several reports of religious preaching, discriminatory comments about homosexuals and transgender individuals, anti-abortion rhetoric, and misogynistic banter, as we said previously." So, I will say this about this case. This will be, if this case goes forward and they file a lawsuit, this will be a very interesting case based on the First Amendment, based on religious freedom, based on freedom of speech. And it's going to really show us whether people can express themselves and teach what has been established scientific fact, or whether or not people's personal, people who are offended because of their personal beliefs, if that's going to be something that stops people from being able to teach scientific fact, and whether it will turn what we know to be scientific fact into mere conjecture, or a matter of opinion. If this basic idea of chromosomes determining sex, if this gets thrown up in the air as something, a matter of opinion, then we're really getting to a point where it'll be very difficult to establish anything as the truth, and everything will become people's personal belief, or quote unquote their truth. Again, from my perspective, there is the truth. There are those things that are established as absolute fact, and those things that are objective reality, and then there are personal perspectives, and we can't cancel everyone who believes in an established scientific fact because of our own personal perspectives, and if we want to maintain any sanity here within the nation called the United States of America. So with that, brothers and sisters, we will close out this discussion. This will be a case that I will try to follow up on. One thing I've learned with trying to follow up on these legal cases, the wheels of justice are moving extremely slowly. And there are other cases that I've been following, and they have been moving very slow. But I find this to be very interesting. And if a biology professor cannot teach biology, we're all in trouble of being fired for just stating basic scientific truths. So with that, brothers and sisters, I thank you all for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Again, with that, I say Abibi Fahodie and straight black pride. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also follow us on our other social media platforms. On Instagram, we're at dc.radical1. On Twitter, we're at dc_radical_ONE. And the Cashapp is $DC Radical, the numeral 1. Thank you again.